This is the optimistic Angel Man 2K1 here, and I got something important to tell you all. My summer break is coming to an end in less than 20 days, and I am trying my hardest to get some of my important videos out of the way. I have college to attend to, and I don't want so much stuff to take over my time. My first day of college starts on August 21st, 2023, Monday. I will try to reveal the Angel City High School students before then. I might even reveal the Angel City Middle School students soon as well. Stay tuned for that. I have so much stuff going on my mind for the past few days. I will also try to make a few other videos before September comes as well. Wish me luck on them. I am still on my road to 7,000 subscribers. Things have been pretty tough this summer dealing with certain issues. It's hard to deal with it sometimes. But I got to. But anyway, I guess that's all I have to say. Make sure to subscribe to my channel. This is me, over and out. Enjoy the final days of summer break.
This upcoming winter season is going to be really interesting because right now, all around the globe, there are major weather pattern changes going on. And these changes are going to directly affect our winter here in the US. Arctic blasts, blizzards, and even severe weather are all on the table. But the interesting part is where these things are going to happen. In this video, I'm going to tell you all about that and what you can expect in your own backyard. So you've probably heard about it by now, but El Nino is ramping up down here in the Pacific Ocean. This pretty much just means that the waters are getting much warmer than usual. And since this is such a big body of water, its temperature fluctuations have major impacts on the weather worldwide. For the past 3 winters, we've been in a La Nina, which is when those Pacific waters are actually colder than usual. So as we head into our first El Nino in quite a while, we're expecting some big changes. During a typical El Nino winter, we usually see an extended Pacific jet stream, and this brings a lot of storms into the south. We also tend to see the polar jet stream cut across the Great Lakes, allowing for much warmer than average air to build up underneath it in western Canada and through the northern US. At the same time, things get a lot wetter and somewhat colder down here in the south thanks to all the storminess. And in between all those areas, we usually end up a bit drier than normal, but things fluctuate a lot here. But here's the thing, what I just showed you was a typical El Nino. And what we're about to experience is anything but a typical El Nino. You see, here's where we are right now with sea surface temperatures in the Pacific, and here are all the specific places that we monitor when determining the intensity of an El Nino. You can see very clearly that we are warmer than average.
So you think you know Wix. Do you really? First up, we've got Shake Video.
Across the board. And you can also see here the long history of these waters being colder than average, but more recently, things have actually kind of flatlined. And if the warming stopped here, we'd be looking at only a weak to moderate El Nino for this winter, which would make a big difference in the overall USA forecast. But is the warming going to stop here? Well, let's take a look at some forecast models. Here's the latest projection from the CFS model. As you can see, just a few weeks from now, we do expect these waters to start warming significantly once again. And by around October, we're probably going to be in at least a moderate to strong El Nino. So what exactly is the impact here in the US when there's a strong El Nino versus a weak El Nino in the winter? Well, as far as temperatures go, with a weak El Nino, we would expect to see much colder than average temperatures for a lot of the East Coast due to that polar jet making its way farther south. But with a stronger El Nino, things are completely flipped. We get colder in the west and somewhat warmer in the east. But even dialing it down this much does not tell the whole story. Sure, it looks like we're going to have a moderate to strong El Nino, and we're going to have a lot of historical data to back up what that actually means for us, but there is no historical data whatsoever for this next big part of the equation that we have to figure out. Right now, the Atlantic Ocean is hotter than it's ever been before, and not only will that have implications on this hurricane season, but these warm waters have the ability to feed all storms, even snowstorms, especially east of the Mississippi River. Most of our bigger storms rely on warm, moist air from either the Gulf of Mexico or the Atlantic to survive. And the warmer and more moist they are, the bigger the storms can potentially be. If we get into a situation this winter where we have abundant cold air and the sea surface temperatures are still this high, we're going to have a very active stretch of big time snowstorms. But once again, we haven't really ever seen an El Nino winter where the Atlantic was so warm, so we have nothing to compare this against. Now, we're still quite a ways away from winter, and there's only so much you can predict at this point. But I do have a preliminary and very early winter outlook for you. First of all, in general, I think temperatures are going to follow a pattern consistent with the strong El Ninos of the past. It's going to be much warmer than usual in Western Canada, and a lot of that warmth will dip down into the central US as well. In the south, due to the amplified storm track, things are more than likely going to be quite a bit colder than usual. And despite the record warm sea surface temperatures in the Atlantic, I think a lot of those southern storms are going to travel parallel to the East Coast, and that's going to bring down much colder air on a more regular basis to the eastern states. And everyone else in between can pretty much expect mostly average or typical seasonal temperature changes and swings this winter. Now, that's a pretty useful forecast for sure, but I have an even more bold prediction for you right now. Based on everything we've learned today, I think I have an idea as to where our next Big Daddy snowstorm is going to be. What in the world is a Big Daddy snowstorm, you ask? Well, just about every year, somewhere in the US, there's a snowstorm that's quite memorable for the people it impacts. You've probably heard people talk about the blizzard of this year or that year, or you've heard somebody say, I remember back in the old days during the great snowstorm of 1980 whatever. It's those kinds of storms that I refer to as Big Daddy snowstorms. I think there's a good chance we're going to get one this year, and I've got a map showing you where it's most likely to happen. First off, here's the general 2% likelihood area. It's big because the probability is small. Now, here's the fun stuff. The dark blue represents where I think we have a 5% chance of seeing a Big Daddy snowstorm this winter. The pink is going to represent a 10% chance, and the red is actually going to be a 15% chance. I think that at some point this winter, a large area of cold air is going to be in place as one of those El Nino enhanced southern storms starts tracking north. When that happens, someone is going to get a heaping helping of snow. Now, of course, this is a wildly early prediction to make, and it's mostly just for fun, but go ahead and hold me accountable. If you want to come back to this video in March or April of 2024 and let me know how I did in the comments, I would love that. The reason I have any shred of confidence here is because El Nino winters and Big Daddy snowstorms are no strangers. A lot of you probably remember the January blizzard of 2016, which dumped up to 3 feet of snow across the mid-Atlantic and caused over $500 million in damage. That storm occurred during the 2014 to 2016 El Nino event which is regarded as one of the strongest El Ninos in recorded history. Another strong El Nino occurred in 1997 and 1998, and there was a ton of big winter storms during this time period, including the January 1998 North American ice storm, which actually left 4 million people without power and caused $7 billion in damage. And the list really goes on and on. And it's also important to note that most of these El Nino winters were also quite active in terms of severe weather. Due to that increased southern storm track and large temperature swings, severe weather outbreaks are unfortunately something that we're certainly going to be dealing with this winter. So whether you're dealing with a big daddy snowstorm or big nasty thunderstorms this winter, something I think you're going to need is a good radar app. Just look at me. My life revolves around the weather. It's very obviously a big part of my life. And you know how I choose to monitor the weather? On my phone most of the time through the Radar Omega app. I use it when I'm storm chasing. I use it when I'm just trying to see what's in that dark cloud over there. I even use it when I'm guiding millions of people through some of the worst storms that have hit the US. And you can actually have the same thing on your phone for less than the price of a Big Mac meal.
What can I do for you today?
Can I get the most capable weather app in the world?
No, but you can download it by clicking the link in the description.
Thank you.
Thousands of y'all have already downloaded this app and you love it, but there are thousands more of you that have yet to get this tool, and I'm not going to shut up about it until all of y'all do. This is a potentially life-saving product, and I truly believe it's better than the alternatives. If you're even slightly interested in looking at the radar, getting severe weather warnings, or looking at satellite, or watching Storm Chaser live feeds, or any of that, click the link in the description right now to download.
Monday afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to Weather on the Go, all your weather coverage. In today's video, we'll be focusing on a super El Nino potentially developing as we get deeper into the summer and into the fall of 2023. And we'll be focusing in on the weather pattern throughout the summer and what to expect through the month of September of 2023 in this video, followed by your tropical season forecast, what to expect throughout the hurricane season. I'll answer those questions later on in today's video. But first, let's understand what El Nino is. So let's look here at the sea surface temperature anomalies here currently across the equatorial Pacific. You see we have a lot of oranges and reds here, mainly from the Central Americas, South America on westward here over the Central Pacific here. And this is very important because as you look at our El Nino, as it's been developing over the past couple of months, going all the way back to the beginning of April, we were in a El Nino pattern starting here with the positive values here on April 17th. Then we started growing a little bit more, all the way through the middle of May. We had it at plus 0.5, and then going all the way here to present day, it's already up to about a weak El Nino status. So what does this mean moving forward? Well, we got to determine what the difference is between La Nina versus El Nino. So looking at this, we are currently trending into El Nino status. That's where we have the warmer sea surface temperatures across portions of the Central Pacific, or better known as the equatorial Pacific Ocean. When you have a La Nina event occurring, that's when you see cooler than normal sea surface temperatures across the equatorial or Pacific or the Central Pacific Ocean. So that is what we are seeing. We are seeing El Nino conditions prevail And now we have to determine the difference here in what this means for our weather pattern in North America. So, with a La Nina, which we just got out of a 3-year La Nina, you usually have more drier conditions across the southern and southeastern United States because the Pacific jet stream is further to the north and it's more variable as well. So, that brings more precipitation to the upper Midwest, the Great Lakes, and also the Ohio Valley. But now, as we're trending into El Nino, we're starting to see more signs of a active subtropical and Pacific jet stream amplifying across the California region, southern United States, and up the East Coast, and shutting off a lot of that northern jet stream for the northern plains, the upper Midwest, the Great Lakes, and even to some extent the Northeast as well. And that's where we have the wetter conditions across the southern United States. So now we kind of look at what to expect through an El Nino summer. I know we're just starting to go into an El Nino. This is not really a full El Nino summer per se. But from May to September, this is your temperature anomalies. Wherever you see the green on this map, that's where you're slightly below average with the temperatures when putting all the El Nino events together here to present day. And where you see the whites, that's just average temperatures for any given El Nino event. But then we go looking here at the precipitation anomalies, and you do see some differences here. So you start to see average to slightly above average precipitation favored mainly across the central United States, across the Great Plains and the Mississippi Valley, with drier conditions prevailing really for the Northeast here into the Ohio Valley and Mid-Atlantic states, especially where you see the yellows here and the oranges departuring below normal precipitation. And very interesting on this is where it shows especially a signal into southern and southeastern Arizona for slightly below average precipitation, usually from May to September during El Nino events. Lately, we have been seeing slightly below average signal for precipitation, which directly will affect the monsoon season across those areas. We'll get into that here shortly as well. So when you put all of that together and look at what we are seeing right now, this is the U.S. Drought Monitor here that was produced last Thursday, and we are seeing a lot of significant drought developing across the Central Plains, the Upper Midwest, the Ohio Valley, and into some degree the Northeast as well. And this is very significant when you see an El Nino summer start to emerge and an El Nino event nonetheless start to emerge. We see a lot of severe drought, extreme, and even exceptional drought starting to develop across the middle of the country. And now we look at the U.S. seasonal drought outlook that goes from now all the way through the end of September here. And it does not show much improvement across the Ohio Valley, parts of the Midwest, and really actually seeing more of the drought expanding and intensifying as we go further on through the summer and into early fall with a developing El Nino. But now we start to see a signal in the Central Plains into South Dakota, Western Iowa, getting into Nebraska, Kansas, Oklahoma, and parts of Missouri. We start to get out of our drought conditions the further we get into late summer and into early fall. So now we start to see a flip-flop with our pattern with wetter conditions underneath here, and then drier conditions across the northern United States, across the Great Lakes, the Midwest, and the Ohio Valley. So now we look forward to the overall weather pattern. So we are in June now, but now as we push into July next month, we will start to see an anchored high pressure system develop across the southern and southwestern United States, generally over those traditional monsoonal season areas here across Colorado, New Mexico, and Arizona. We start to determine whether or not we see northwest flow over the top of this, and it does look like we do start to see that across the upper Midwest and to some degree the Ohio Valley through the month of July. But what this means for a temperature perspective, it's going to be very stifling warm, especially if you live in Canada. For this time of year, the departure from normal, these temperatures are going to be well above normal through the Canadian provinces, the upper Midwest, and the Ohio Valley. So I do expect a very hot, very steamy July if you live across Canada, the upper Midwest, and also the Ohio Valley into the Northeast. We still see a slightly above average temperatures across the South, but it's not as extreme as further to the north. But I definitely will expect some very high heat index values like we've been seeing lately to extend into July across the southern United States. And now turning to precipitation through July, I do expect the monsoon weather to actually hold off for the most part. We may see some rain events at times, but I think the monsoon season will be muted for the most part through July, and we'll have most of the precipitation across the central and southern plains and the southeast as we go through the month of July with a little drier signal. Again, unfortunately, with the feedback of the drought up here persisting with drier conditions from Wisconsin all the way to the mid-Atlantic states. So that will be expected through the month of July. Now, as we turn to August, not too much of a change. We still have that anchored high pressure system. It may actually strengthen a little bit more through the month of August. I do actually think the month of August will be the hottest for the northern United States, for the northern plains, the upper Midwest, and the Great Lakes region, and parts of the Canadian provinces as well, with the highest signal across southeastern Canada. But you see underneath this, we have a lot of these whites and even some light blues showing up. That's average to slightly below average temperatures for Texas, the Dixie Alley region, and over here into the southeast through the month of August. And the reason for that is that active subtropical jet just continues to remain parked across the southern United States. So we'll see active weather, some severe weather possible, also some very heavy rainfall events possible across the southern plains into the lower Mississippi Valley, with a drier signal across the monsoonal areas and over the top of that ridge at times across the upper Midwest as well, with some drier than normal temperatures, again, with the feedback of that drought through the month of August. Now, finally, we go into September. We start to flatten out that ridge just a little bit further to the south, so I expect the heat to remain across the southern plains, the southern Four Corners region, and into Mexico more. So we'll start to de-amplify the pattern as we go in towards September. What this means for temperatures, well, for September standards, it does look like a hot September if you look at this map, but I promise you it will be warm, but not nearly as hot as what we saw in July or August. And remember, as we go deeper in through 2023 into fall, we're going to start to see those temperature averages start to slow down a little bit and trend cooler. So even though you see above average anomalies on here, does not mean you're going to see 100-degree heat through September. It just means that the September overall will be warm across the majority of North America. And what this means for precipitation, it's kind of a mixed signal right now of around average precipitation through the month of September, maybe a little pocket of hope of some precipitation up here in the upper Midwest. We can hope for that after a very dry middle to late summer up here. But we still continue with the signal down here to the Four Corners region and the Western Plains, that monsoon season really not getting going too much even through September. So that is something to keep an eye on. So with that said, my monsoonal season forecast for 2023, I do expect slightly below average precipitation across those traditional monsoonal areas. So for Colorado, Utah, Arizona, New Mexico, and parts of the Baja of California, I really don't see much of a monsoon season for you. Yes, you could see some rain from time to time, but I'm expecting it overall, the monsoon season from now through September, to be very weak across these areas here and not really that significant. So below average precipitation for the monsoon season across those areas. Now turning to my severe weather forecast through the rest of summer, I did kind of update this from the last update earlier on here this month. I do expect more likely, if not very likely, severe weather, especially in these orange and red shaded colors. So if you live into the northern plains, down through the Missouri Valley, into the Tennessee Valley here, that's where the areas are expected to get more frequent severe weather events, possibly a couple of significant weather events with MCSs, those mesoscale convective systems, possibly a couple of derechos potentially through the rest of summer. But it is possible anywhere along and east of the Rockies that we do see severe weather. Again, it is the warm season, so we always have to watch out for severe weather. Whether you're in New Mexico, Texas, Florida, or even in Maine, we will continue to monitor that through the rest of summer. Turning to the tropical weather update, this is the accumulated precipitation anomaly through July. I do expect a lot of these tropical waves through July to remain further to the south than we usually do see them for July because of a stronger Bermuda high pressure system. The model here is starting to signal maybe the Lesser Antilles, the Caribbean could get very active, but then there's a signal as well that it doesn't really quite get into the Western Caribbean or the Gulf as frequently through July. So maybe there's some hope for the southeastern United States that, hey, maybe July won't be a big month for hurricanes or tropical storms making landfall towards the United States, especially as we get deeper into El Nino conditions. So the prognosis here for July is that these tropical waves could develop. They'll move into the eastern Pacific and then kind of fall apart or move across the Central Americas into the eastern Pacific side and make the eastern Pacific Ocean a little bit more active for the tropics through July. Then, as we go into August, that Bermuda high may move a little bit further north and northeast here, which would lift the active tropical waves a little bit further north. And I do actually think August could be one of the biggest months for the potential of landfalling systems in towards the Greater Antilles, the Bahamas, or even the United States proper here. So I do think that we are going to see a bigger month for August as this lifts a little further north. So portions of Puerto Rico, Cuba, the Dominican Republic, the Bahamas, and even Florida probably in line for potentially a higher than normal probability for landfalling systems sometime in the month of August. And then the same thing holds true into September. It kind of wavers a little bit with that high pressure system out here with that Bermuda high over the eastern tropical Atlantic. So we may have more of a southern track at times, more of a northern track at times, kind of wishy-washy through the month of September, but we will see the signal there still for the Greater Antilles and the Southeast. And always September is usually the bigger months we have to watch out for tropical systems as well. So we'll continue to monitor that. And then even as we go into October, still the signal is there. The Eastern Pacific could really get heated up there into October and even into November as well. Kind of a mixed signal, more of the Caribbean in play there as we go deeper into the hurricane season. So from September to October into November, the Caribbean is going to be probably the most prime area for tropical weather this hurricane season. The Gulf will probably be more below normal with our tropical weather as well with that Bermuda high. So far south, it's going to be difficult to get that up into the Gulf, but we still could see some development even as we go into August. I think August will be the biggest month for the southeastern United States. So here's my tropical season predictions for the Atlantic, the Caribbean, and the Gulf of Mexico bodies of water. Water there. My named storms 13 to 16. I expect 13 to 16 storms named this season across those bodies of water. I expect 4 to 7 hurricanes as well. 0 to 3 major hurricanes. There may not be a major hurricane, or there could be as many as 3. There is a possibility of that as well. And my forecast for U.S. landfalling storms, I think there will at least be one landfalling system sometime this hurricane season, whether it is a tropical depression, a tropical storm, a hurricane, or a major hurricane. I think one at least to as many as 4 are possible into the southeastern United States as well. So we'll continue to monitor that as we get a little bit closer through the hurricane season. Well, if you are not subscribed to the YouTube channel, be
wonder what's on the TV this time.
Hey Dave.
Yes, Catherine. What is it?
We are going to Costa Coffee to drink some coffee. So you better behave yourself. Otherwise I will be really cross with you. Is that clear?
Why? But I thought we are going to the McDonald's restaurant to get some ice cream today. You can't be serious.
I'm being very serious. We are going to the Costa Coffee, and that's final. Don't even think about trying to bed your way out of it. Now, let's get going.
Welcome to the Costa Coffee. How may I help you too?
I would like to have a magic coffee, please. Well, don't just stand there. Are you gonna order something?
No way. Can we go to McDonald's to have some ice cream, please?
What did I tell you? We can go another time later, but not now. Please order something right now, or you're grounded. I mean it.
Why don't we go to McDonald's restaurant? Costa Coffee shop is really boring. Because if we won't go, I will sue you in court.
Hey! What did I tell you about using suing threats to me? I'm not pleased for accusing me of suing. You either get up on the floor and order something, or you can have nothing at all.
Oh, I don't believe this, Roscoe. A man who throws a tantrum like a 2-year-old. Well, I never.
Got that right? This is getting really embarrassing. Let's get out of here.
Dave. I won't tell you again. Get up on the floor this instant, or I will take you up myself. You're wasting time, you know.
Not until we go to McDonald's. You?
Stop! You do not use atrocious language in this coffee shop. How could you? You leave me no choice. I have to apologize for my husband's childish behavior, sir. I don't know why he acts this way all the time.
That's all right. We hope that the rest of the day will be fine for both of you. See you later.
We are going home right now. You are in humongous trouble for this. My God! Are you serious? How dare you misbehaving at the Costa Coffee by refusing to order something, using suing threats, throwing a fit like a 2-year-old, and using atrocious language. This has got to stop this instant. If it carries on, you will get divorced kindly. You are grounded for 4 weeks. 1 week per offense. Go to our room and stay there until you learned your lesson. I'm extremely furious with you right now. Stop the crying. Otherwise, I will give you a worse punishment that fits for your behavior. The destructive husband of mine. Will he ever learn to behave like a grown man?
Where do slippers sleep? I slip my slippers off my feet and tuck myself between my sheets. And as I lay there in my bed, a little thought comes to my head. Where do slippers sleep? Do they sleep by my sneakers on the floor? Or do they sleep behind the closet door? Do they sleep next to the big toy box? Or in my drawer, next to my socks?